So what we have here is a typical Frigidaire top mount freezer refrigerator unit. And in this video we're going to go over the steps needed to install a functioning ice maker. But furthermore, we're also going to install the necessary plumbing to go from the cold water tap over to the fridge so that we can have a water line. Typically you wouldn't install an ice maker in an 8-year-old refrigerator, but I just happened to get one that a friend of mine bought and didn't need with his new fridge, and he offered it to me, and I said, sure, what the hell, it'll fit mine, so why not? Just so you know, the ice makers and Frigidaire products, at least the top mount freezers, typically made since 2003, I believe, will generally use the IM115 ice maker kit. However, the IM116,000 is a suitable replacement. It will actually supersede the IM115, and it fits just perfectly. As a matter of fact, I've already done the job, and I'm going to show you what it looks like. See, it works. It's there, and it's making ice all happily, and I'm very pleased. And the plumbing is already done, and I'm going to show you how to do this too. This is just a press fit valve with a T-fitting that allows me to connect my cold water valve on my sink and my 1/4-inch line to the refrigerator in one shot. Total cost of this project, about $50 for the ice maker. That's the MSRP. The plumbing materials cost me about, I think it was $10 for the chrome-plated valve. About, I paid $15 or $20 for the water line, so we're up to about $35 in materials, which isn't too bad considering the amount of ice tray filling trips you'll have to make. So stay tuned, and hopefully somebody learns something out of this, or otherwise you just might watch it for entertainment value. Either way, enjoy. I've always wanted one of these. Never had an ice maker. And now's my chance to finally join the rest of the 21st century and have an ice maker. These kits are relatively universal. This is just a generic Frigidaire kit. It works on any Electrolux made since 2003, so I'm told. And it's going to fit right in here. And it's got a little ice bin that sits underneath it, and it's going to be great, so I'm told. And all we got to do is remove a couple of plugs, like this one here. This little cover snap right off. Then there's a plug here for the water line. And we just got to pop in a few screws, and it shouldn't be too hard to install. So what you got to do now is you got to pull the fridge away from the wall and start working on getting the water valve installed. So what I have to do is actually push this little flap in. This is going to open up the port where the water line goes. And then there's an insulation plug that comes out like that. And that goes right into the freezer box. And to the other side of where that little plug is. I'm having a difficult time getting this plug out, so I'm going to push it in from the inside. Push it out from the inside by removing the back cover. That's what it looks like inside the back of a fridge, by the way. Here's your, now this fan here actually is what cools the refrigerator compartment down by sucking in air from the freezer box and blowing it down. This right here does nothing more than control a valve that changes the size of the amount of airflow going into the refrigerator box. And this plug is being a bitch. There it goes. Now we can make sure this is still plugged in, because that can unplug. I'm just going to push it right back where it belongs. So this refrigerator has had a lot of work done to it over the years. It's kind of like Joan Rivers' face, in a way. And the thing is, I am determined to keep it running for as long as humanly possible. I would never buy an ice maker for an 8-year-old refrigerator because that's just, well, stupid. But when given the opportunity of adding one, why the hell not, right? That's what I say. Why the hell not? So I'm going to get my little driver here. Its lowest setting. And we're going to screw this back together. Oh, shit. That didn't line up. Let's try to push it. There we go. Get that all the way in there. Yeah, I've had this thing apart a few times. It's got a new compressor relay. Well, new as of about 4 years ago. And it's got a new defrost timer as of almost 8 months ago, maybe. And now it's going to have a new ice maker. I'm also going to put a new set of racks in it. I have a new freezer rack for it. That's going to come out of the fridge that we're throwing away at work. I would, you know, and you're probably wondering, why don't I just take the one from work, which is newer, and just fix it? I thought about that. But that fridge is black, and I don't want a black fridge. It's also smaller. It's a smaller version of this one. And I just don't want a smaller fridge. You don't blame me for that. Now I got to pull out these plugs that are on the side of the freezer wall. Ah, come on. They don't want to come out either. Jesus Christ. There we go. Got that out. And the second one comes out. Now you can see that. We're also going to give this freezer box a good cleaning. I don't think I've cleaned it in a while. I eat out all the time, so there's never really any food in here. It's usually just junk. The bachelor life is the way to go, I tell you. Well, if you can afford to do it that way. If not, well, then it sucks. But anyway, got it done. Okay, now what next? According to the instructions, I've got to assemble the fill pipe, which goes in the back of the fridge, and that came in a bag of hardware. So this right here is the fill tube, and that just sticks in the back of the freezer box. And I've got my trusty Leatherman tool. I'll snip that. Installation looks like it's pretty damn straightforward. So this tube gets shoved in the back in this hole, like so. I think. Am I missing something? I think I'm missing something. So you've got that tube. See, it's already like hooked up. Push tube seal over the threads. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's pretty much already done. It just says push it in the back, and there's nothing. Install adjustable leveling bracket on bottom of ice maker. Okay. So that just gets shoved in there. Shove it in. But this seal doesn't do any good. Unless I'm missing something. Oh, it's not lining up. Well, that's not a problem. I just... Is it in? Yeah. There we go. in place. So when the ice maker is mounted, that's just going to sit in like that. It's pretty simple. Next step, it wants me to install this leveling bracket. This leveling bracket is what will actually adjust the position of the ice maker this way, from side to side, to ensure that the unit is level and that the ice cubes are made evenly. And that just goes right here with this. Yeah, that's better. Back it off just a little bit, make it adjustable. Then we're going to proceed to the next step. We're going to actually install the ice maker screws. Now those, according to my drawing, number 5, are 2 number 5 screws, and they are the shorter of the two. They're going to be these two. And so we got those two, and then we see this list of parts doesn't match what was actually given to me, so I'm just going to have to shoot from the hip on that. Leveling bracket, we got that. We got 2 of the other kind of screw. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, so it doesn't quite match up to what I've got here, but that's okay. Got to go over and above. That gets plugged into here. On the back of the freezer wall, there's a plug, and that's basically a universal ice maker plug, at least as Frigidaires are concerned. It's got a handy little cover that goes over that plug to ensure that it remains relatively airtight. Well, I say relatively, but close enough. Actually, it's not moving out like I want it to. Stuck. There we go. Yeah, there we go. And that goes on there. Just there we go. It doesn't quite fit my fridge, but it'll do. Good enough. Our ice maker in there. Boom, boom, boom. Okay. Then once we tighten those screws, it should, meet up correctly with the fridge box and all that. So I just reread the instructions, and it actually tells me to break the tabs off of that plug because it's not compatible, or I have a different style connector in my freezer. That's all. So we're going to do just that. There's really no way to work but we'll get it done. It wants me to break these two tabs off. And do that we shall. This ice maker is compatible, is a replacement for the one that this refrigerator is designed for. That model was discontinued, but it's still available in some places. I believe the part number was like IM115, and this is the IM116000. So this is like a replacement for that version, but it is still fully compatible. So if you have an IM115, sorry, then this will work just fine for you. Okay. So now we got to redo that connection. Plug it right back in. Then push this. There we go. Now the cover is where it needs to be. I was going to use my tripod for this video, but I couldn't fit it in the freezer. Actually, I'm going to move that around. I'm going to flip this around the other way so the wire doesn't get in the way of the filter. Alright, so I've made all the necessary adjustments, and the ice tray is now securely mounted. We still need to level it using the leveling adjustment. The water inlet is lined up, in place. Everything's pretty much ready to go from this end. Now we need to work on the water. One thing I forgot to do was actually level the ice maker. That has to be done first. Let's see if this tool will do the job. I should probably use a hand tool for that. I don't have one that size. Well, I'll figure something out. But basically what it wants me to do is make this gap even and then tighten it down. That's all. This is the water valve. It's not dissimilar from the one used in your washing machine or dishwasher. And all it does is it just opens up a valve when energized. The ice maker is what calls for water during the cycle, during its filling cycle. And these are basically press fit connectors. And this one here, this is your water inlet, and that is a threaded connector. That's what's going to go to the water line that we need to install under the kitchen sink. Alright, we're now at the back of the refrigerator. You can see there's that relay we replaced quite a while ago. Here's the old timer. I kept it for old timer's sake. Alright. So, everything looks pretty good back here. I don't see any signs of any leakage or crazy. Now here's that connector that we need to connect to the fill valve. These things are pre-wired. Isn't that cool? Because they want you to pay the $50 for the accessory when you buy the fridge. But nobody does. I've never seen a top freezer model with an ice maker. I have never seen one. Ever. Anyway. It looks like the factory drilled holes for that valve are right here. So what we're going to do, I'll put my camera back so maybe you can see a little better. But I'm going to mount it just as it says in the drawing. With 2 screws. There and there. Okay. Now, actually, I have that upside backwards. No, that's about right. that takes care of that. Then we just plug this in. It's too short. No, not really. It's not really polarized. It's just, all it has to do is energize a coil. So, it can go in either way. Just like that. Actually, I'm going to put it around the refrigerant line. There's no strain. Just like that. This tube here, all it has to do is has to be routed. By the way, my fridge has the factory clips for that tube. It has one there, and I just put one up there on the top. But I routed it behind the coils. Interesting fact, I don't believe they make exterior coil fridges anymore, or passively cooled condensers. I looked at every fridge at Lowe's today, and not one of them had the exposed condenser. Not one. This just gets shoved in there. Just like a shark bite fitting. Make sure it's pushed in all the way. That's pulled out. It's not going anywhere. The fridge prep is done. It's that simple. Now we have to tap a hole into one of my water lines, which is something I'm none too thrilled about. But it's got to be done. I'm now going to plug the fridge in so that I'm going to put my stuff back in the freezer. Get that all cooled down. Kinda. In all disclosure, I'm filming this section the day after I actually did the job. The ice maker works beautifully. Everything is good to go. But the problem is I did it incorrectly. I did what almost every homeowner in the United States is going to do when they go to do this job. I installed a saddle valve on the cold water line under my sink. The saddle valves are risky little devices because they have a propensity to leak. They don't age well, and they're just a goofy solution to a problem that can be solved in a better way. So what we're going to do is we're going to rip that sucker out, and we're going to cut the pipe, and we're going to install this. I'm using press fit connectors because they're just so damn easy, and they work. I used press fit connectors when I installed my water heater last January, and I haven't had a single problem yet. And the good thing about these press fit connectors is that they can be removed without any special tools. This is a quarter turn valve. It's a ball valve. It has one outlet. It is it's a 3/8 outlet. And it actually comes with everything you need to hook up a sink. Well, yeah, a hard copper line, I'm sorry. And all you do is you take that off, and then you thread on this T adapter. What this does is it brings it down to a 1/4 inch for the water tap going to the fridge, and a 3/8 inch for the sink. And we're going to thread that onto this little valve here. Make sure to tighten it down in the right position. Ultimately, it's going to be like that. When this valve is installed, it's going to come out to about here. And that hose should be more than long enough to make that work. So, let me get my, my wrench out, and I'm going to tighten this down before I put it on the pipe. So I've removed the saddle valve, I've disconnected the sink. It's now time to cut the existing valve off. Now, because we've punctured the pipe, it's obvious that we need to cut it before that puncture where you see the water coming out. So we're going to cut it as close as we can. Come on. just draining down the cold water system right now is what it's doing. So this is a pipe cutter. These are very easy to use. Even I can use them. But once we cut this, I'm using it backwards. And make sure that it's not, yeah, we want to cut just one groove and tighten it every couple of revolutions, and eventually it'll just cut right through the pipe. It's easier than using scissors. This tool costs $10. It's not terribly expensive. And this valve is just going to fall into the pot below, that's all. These are directional. I forget which direction you're supposed to turn it. I believe it matters. I don't know. Some of them do, some of them may not. Did I mention I hate plumbing? That's better. I don't need a lot of light to do this. We're also at the same time we're going to replace an old 1980s worn out valve with a brand new one. So, yay. I think we're almost there. This is a brand new cutter too, so. And here comes the water. The rest of it. Gotta make sure that pipe drains out before we go any further. Actually, we really don't. But it would be a little easier. There's not a lot of water in there. Now we're at the point of no return. Alright, here's the valve fully installed. You can see the sink line connected to the top 3/8 fitting. You can see that the 1/4 inch fitting on the side goes right out that braided line, which eventually reaches the refrigerator. Installing these fittings is easy as pie. Although pie is quite difficult to make. I've made several myself, and anyway. In order to get a successful seal on one of these push fit fittings, I found that cleaning the pipe thoroughly with like a high grit sandpaper, I used 800 on this one, to kind of polish it up a little bit. It gives the rubber seal a nice surface to slide over, and it reduces the likelihood of any leakage. Older copper plumbing is going to have a lot of corrosion, and in some cases a lot of solder flux, maybe even some leftover solder if you're close to a joint on it. So you want to get that nice and smooth and shiny, and it just slides right on. And you'll see that this valve actually, the entire valve will rotate slightly because it's not really firmly attached to the pipe. It's not clamped down or soldered in place. So you want to make sure that if you work the valve after it's installed, that you hold the entire body of the valve in place and then rotate the valve to open or close position. And that'll reduce the likelihood of any future leaks. Of course, that's being quite over cautious, I think. But that's what it says on the valve manual. A valve like this will probably last about 15 to 20 years. Although it's hard to say because the push fit fittings are a relatively new product in comparison to saddle valves or even, of course, soldered fittings. Ideally, you would want to put a soldered in valve, but I'm not doing that. Oh, You just heard the ice maker dump a nice load of 8 cubes. Let's see what it looks like. Look at that. 8 cubes. Look at these nice crescent-shaped cubes. You're probably wondering why they're all crescent-shaped like that, and I'll tell you why. I'm not going to bore you with connecting the lines to the fridge and everything, because that's pretty straightforward. If you got this far, you'll know how to do that. But I'll tell you why I used the line that I used. Now, you have 3 choices when it comes to, actually 4 choices, when it comes to picking out a connecting hose to your fridge. One of the choices is, of course, old-fashioned copper tubing. It's cheap, it works, it doesn't leak, it may never leak. The problem I have with copper tubing is that if you move the fridge out too many times, the tubing can crack from metal fatigue and break, potentially causing water damage. Nobody wants water damage. But, you know, you really have to leave a large service loop for it to be able to pull in and out as you move the fridge back and forth. In my case, I have an access panel underneath or behind the fridge that goes to the bathroom plumbing, and I need access to that if something needs to be replaced or inspected. I find that with copper tubing, I may only have a few chances to do that before it finally lets go. The second option is quite popular because it's inexpensive. Plastic tubing. Plastic tubing is specifically mentioned in the instructions for the ice maker install guide, that it specifically states that plastic tubing is prone to leakage. And I can see why, because plastic tubing, unlike PEX, will dry out over time and it may crack. And the other reason is plastic tubing is more likely to cause the water to develop a funny taste, meaning your ice cubes may have a plasticky taste, at least for the first couple of months of operation. It's now on a fill cycle. See water pouring into there. Look at that. Working like a charm. I love it. So that's why plastic tubing... Oh, the other thing about plastic tubing is it kinks very easily. So as you're pushing the fridge back, you could have a tubing kink. And sometimes, if the plastic is old enough, that kink will be just enough to cause a pinhole leak. It also doesn't really work well with compression fittings. I mean, it works okay, but lower quality tubing may eventually lose shape and, you guessed it, form a leak. The third option is the option that I chose, and I'll open the cabinet so you can see a better shot of it. But this is a nylon braided cord, or nylon braided tubing. It's actually it's like a rubber hose that has a nylon cord impregnated into it, and that nylon cord keeps it from expanding under pressure. This stuff works very well. It's the same exact hose that you use for your vegetable sprayer. Same exact material. And I believe it's made of vinyl or PVC or something like that. And that will last forever. That hose will never fail. People use them for high pressure air hoses. I mean, it's never going to fail. It doesn't kink very easily. It has a lot of rigidity to it. This is a 10-foot hose, so that gives me more than enough hose to pull the fridge out far enough to remove the connection. And there's a third option, and that's actually what I used on my dishwasher. It's a braided stainless steel hose. It's actually a rubber hose that's jacketed in a braided stainless steel mesh. And that's the most expensive option. That hose cost me like $20 for just a short length. I think it's like 5 feet long. But for what I'm using, for the low pressure that this ice maker needs, it's on a reduced fitting at only 1/4 inch. I don't think that using a braided stainless steel hose is conducive or even economical. So those are your options for hookup lines and the pros and cons of each. I mean, the cheapest, of course, is plastic. For $10, you can buy a saddle valve, and it comes with a hose. And that was what I did. I bought that. I bought the whole kit. And I learned very quickly that saddle valves have a very high failure rate. And because my cabinets are made of basically recycled garbage, if they get wet, they'll just expand, the wood will expand and collapse, and I don't want that. I want to reduce the likelihood of any leaks. In fact, so far there are no leaks. Thank God. I don't want leaks. I guess if I really didn't want leaks, I would have used a soldered fitting, but, you know, screw that. Anyway, so those are your options for hookups. I suggest doing something in between what I did and soldered permanently installed fittings. I do not recommend saddle valves, and no plumber on this planet would recommend them. They're the easiest to install, but they're also the highest likely to fail. Okay, we've got our line securely connected. We've got one end run up into the sink. And we're going to turn the valve on and see what happens. Shit! I wish I got that on camera.